Hey, this is going to be a brief video, just an encapsulation or an overview of everything I have been saying since the very day the news was released um, about this Idaho 4 murders. And I'm doing this because it appears that some of my videos have disappeared. I'm not sure what's going on. But in any event, this is going to be a video that encapsulates, reviews everything that I've said without all the astrology. And I'm doing it basically from my own records. So when trial comes up and we get all the information, and as we're getting information now, we can compare it without having to sit through 5 hours of astrology lessons. So, from the beginning and moving forward, so I have not veered from any of this. I've added to it, but I haven't veered from it. And all this is ahead of information coming out that's confirmed or corroborated what I've been seeing. So the first thing is I honestly believe this is a flirtation gone bad. This is like a love triangle, a flirtation. I think this was, a hot girl summer that went the wrong way, like literally went sideways. And I think it was the single one. And I'm pretty sure that's Kaylee was the single one, right? I'm pretty sure it was Kaylee flirting, with a relationship with somebody who wanted much more of a relationship than she was going to give them. I also still believe it was a woman that did this. I think it was a woman who was deeply in the closet, or maybe a woman who's in transition. There was something about this woman and her interest in Kaylee that made this really, really bad if it got out, right? If other people knew about her. And again, I said it before, I say again, in that environment, which is basically, unless you are white, straight, and Christian, there's something wrong with you, right? So you're not allowed to be anything but those things. So for someone to be gay in a small town in Idaho or near a small town in Idaho, I imagine this is a bit of a challenge. Maybe even more of a challenge if they come from a very conservative family without any money, which I think may also be the case here. So with that said, I also think there's some mean girl stuff happening that's been going on for a while. And I think whoever this person is, that I suspect Kaylee was messing around with, and suddenly, like at the last minute, realized that no, I'm not doing this. Like, no, you got to go. I was just joking. She told her girlfriend Maddie, and she told Zana, or one of them told Zana and not Brian, Ethan, Zana and Ethan, and they of course all joined in on the joke, and this became this huge, ha laugh fest humiliation thing targeted at this one person, not realizing that this person was already fragile and a little unstable, and this was going to set them over the edge. I'm telling you. Now, the other things that I think I'm picking up in these charts, looking at the murder charts and stuff like that, and remember, we're guessing at times for some of these things, is that whoever committed the murder, and knives and poisons are the weapons of choice for women. And I realize you're supposed to have all this brute strength, to take down a man or whatever, but it doesn't take that much brute strength to knife somebody to death while they're sleeping. Now, just this morning, I just heard on the one of the videos in the last couple of days that it came out that Ethan had his throat slit near the doorway and was stabbed in the doorway. So I'm just saying, like, as a small woman myself, like, and I'm facing a 6-foot+ man, right, who's literally in my way now or coming after me, I'm pretty sure if I have the first chance I get, I'm cutting his throat, because I don't have the physical strength to keep stabbing him until he drops dead from blood loss, right? Because he'll get my knife. Just saying, you cut a throat, that's quick. Ask OJ. So there's that. And then, of course, this thing with Zana fighting back in the bed, that just came out too, right? Because there's all sorts of deep cut wounds in her hands where she's grabbing the knife. Yeah, I think it was a woman. I think whoever this person is also has received some type of reward or recognition or trophies for their knife skills or hunting skills. Now, remember, too, this is a big hunting territory. So, everybody out there knows how to handle knives from the age of 6 up, right? Because it's hunting and fishing, okay? The other thing is, I suggested this, and I still believe this is possible. One of the reasons they're not finding the knife could possibly be that the person who had the knife, it never belonged to them in the first place. They borrowed it from somebody. So, how difficult would it be to take a knife out of your dad's collection, your boyfriend's collection, your husband's collection, go commit a murder, especially one as clean and neat as this was, right? And then wash the weapon off and put it right back where you found it and nobody's the wiser. Because what happens, of course, is that now there's this big talk about this hunting knife. Oh, this hunting knife. And everybody in town and for 50 miles around the town are looking to see if, wait, that sounds like my knife. So they're going to look to see if their knife is where they remember it being, is it still there, right? And of course it would be, because it was borrowed and put back. So the thing about it, though, is, for collectors, they're very sensitive to exactly how things are positioned. So if this were actually on display, they would notice that the knife is a little bit off, right? Something's not right. So there is a possibility that somebody knows who the killer is because it was their knife that was used. Because when they went and checked, like everybody checked to see if their knife was still where they remember it being, like it was there, but it looked like it had been moved a little bit. Would so-and-so? No, so-and-so would never do anything like that. Well, maybe. No, that's impossible. So the thing about it is, if that happened, they're not going to call the cops, because at that point, the Moscow Police Department had nothing. It's literally like the Keystone Cops in charge of the investigation. They had nothing, and everybody was in a blind panic. And of course, the internet and social media, because these are college students, they're college towns, so blah, 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 like all kinds of things buzzing on the wire. People were absolutely crazy. So the last thing anybody with half a brain is going to do is call the cops and say, oh, I think my knife was used. And then have the cops, because they're looking for somebody to hang for this, and then have the cops show up, and it's like, well, so tell us more about your knife that you think was used by someone else who just happened to put it back, right? Because they would have checked the knife for DNA. So it's possible that somebody may have had their knife borrowed in the middle of the night, knife put back, and if they're a collector, they're very sensitive to positioning of things, so they would have noticed something's not right. But there's no way, because they either get set up themselves for a murder, because how the hell do you explain that you think a ghost borrowed your knife in the middle of the night? Yeah, okay, buddy. Come along. Well, let's go down to the station and talk about this. Or worse, it's somebody in your household that you love, right? Are you going to throw them under the bus on a suspicion? So there was that. That was my line of reasoning. So the other thing is, I'm trying to catch up with all of this stuff, right? The other things I was picking up is, again, I'm not 100% confident, like the internet and everybody else has been confident, that he is the murderer. There's nothing about him that makes any sense to me being the murderer, not astrologically or otherwise. He astrologically has no connections to anyone in this chart. I think I found one connection, and it was to Zana across the charts, and those are supportive connections. This is not the kind of stuff that creates such an explosive antagonistic relationship that you're going to murder people. And just like I did in the sample chart for Carrie Stainer, who murdered 4 women, a serial killer, a horrible life story, killed complete strangers, literally randomly killed complete strangers. And if you look at the astrology charts, there's connections across every single chart. So again, when somebody comes in and makes a change in your life, like a major change in your life, there's going to be a connection between your charts. They're not going to be on a more metaphysical, divine level. They're not unknown to you. There's a relationship there that's carrying over from past lifetimes. And certainly now that there's a murder, will carry over into the next lifetimes. If there's no significant reason for them to be in your life, they're not going to change your life. And believe me, when somebody murders you, they're changing your life. Okay, there's going to be connections between the charts. We're not seeing that in these 4 charts. Carrie Stainer murdered 4 random, strange women he'd never met before until the moment he captured them and killed them. And in each one of those charts, there's direct, multiple connections between his chart and each one of the victims. But we don't see that with Bryan Kohberger and these victims. We see one set of connections between him and Zana, and they're good connections, right? Friendly connections. So that's I mean, it's astrology. It's not, it's not forensic science, but still, like, it's not falling in line with what we know to be true or have seen over and over again. So there's that. Then there's this business about him being a vegan, and he's a PhD student, and he's clearly very smart, right? And a little socially awkward, maybe on the autism spectrum, blah, blah, blah. So picture this for a second, folks. You're in the middle of, like, no town, small town USA, right? Like the nearest big city is only a college town, across the road. Other than that, it's literally just farms. So it's literally the epitome of small town USA. So there's not a lot going on, not a lot of people living there. And everything there is about being straight, white, and Christian. That's all you're allowed to be. That's all we are. That's who we are. And this is small town America. Where are you going to go? Right? So you have to fall in line. And if you're not one of those things, there's something wrong with you, son. Right? So Bryan, while being straight and white, he's also very, very smart. And one of the things that I have learned the hard way over and over and over in my lifetime is that really, really, really genius level smart people have a very difficult time dealing with normal people, because out of an entire group of normal people, there's always those people, regardless how smart or educated they are, right, are really sensitive about their intelligence, right? Nobody likes feeling like the dummy in the room. And even with people who have college educations, like if they're talking to someone, you're like, oh, you're in Mensa? Well, nobody believes that, blah, 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 blah. Well, I have a master's degree, blah, blah, blah. Because where are we going with this, and why are you bringing this up, right? So it's entirely possible that him being as smart as he is would have made it very difficult for him to socialize and be considered normal to the people around them, because people have insecurities, and you get people's insecurities triggered, and they're not rational anymore, and they can be mean as hell, right? Ignorant monkeys, Jesus. So there's that. And oh my God, for the love of God, he's a vegan. He's a vegan in meat and potatoes territory. This is meat, potatoes, and dairy. There's no such thing as a vegan unless you're one of those woke left communist people, right? So right there, just that alone makes him an outcast and awkward and ill-fitting, in that area, right? And certainly subject to a lot of speculation and suspicion the minute something bad goes happen. Because when something bad happens, we never want to point the finger at people that are like us, right? We want to point the finger at those people that are nothing like us, because they make easier targets, which is a lot of what's going on with him right now. So there's that. And Jesus, people, nobody goes to all the trouble of getting into graduate school. And if you don't know, like, you should find out, graduate school is not like it's not like community college. You're just applying to get in, right? Oh, no. Graduate school is much more difficult. It's a much more lifetime commitment. Like, it's a lot of being in school and sacrificing free time in your youth to get there, right? Nobody does all of that to plan the perfect murder 30 years later. And honestly, listen, between you and me, common sense moment. Ask yourself this, if you wanted to do something highly illegal that would land you in prison for the rest of your life, right? Who would you go to for advice about how to do this correctly? I mean, would you go to a criminal who's familiar with criminal activity and clearly has gotten away with it because they haven't been arrested yet, right? Or if they have, they've learned their lesson, know the ins and outs. Or would you go to a criminal attorney, right? There are people that we would automatically go to because they have much more experience and understanding of how these things actually work, not on TV, right? Those are the people we take this information from. What we don't do is spend time, effort, money, tons and tons and tons of student loans to get ourselves to graduate school for literally police work, not law school, police work. Because there's nothing in the books that's going to tell you how to get away with a perfect murder in police school, right? In the PhD program for criminology. Oh my God. Some of y'all need to stop and just accept the fact that you're not the I Spy PI kind of thing. Just calm down. The problem is, while all this is going on, I've been watching, these retired experts and stuff. Everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame, so they're all on, literally dogpiling on this kid, with also, oh yes, of course, why it makes all kinds of sense that he's so obsessed with crime that he went to, graduate school to stop. Oh my God, stop. Some of these people, how in the hell do these people have jobs? I swear. Anyway, so there's that. Now, looking at the charts for the extradition from Pennsylvania, right, and also the Moscow Police Department press release, right, and another one that just came out, the hearing date that's coming up in June. Looking at these charts, here are some other things that I've determined from the chart, so we'll see if this plays out. So the first thing with the Moscow Police Department press release, they need literally a scapegoat. This is a college town that is driven by college money. If there's no college money in the town because students aren't returning, that town could go bankrupt. And all the little businesses that rely on those college students' money will also go bankrupt. And don't forget the most important thing. it's a small town. They don't have a lot of revenue. Outside of the college, it's all farms, right? So they need somebody to hang on from the highest tree so they can close the case and make the kids feel safe coming back to campus. So they have a vested interest in finding somebody, anybody, that they can charge with this crime. Bryan makes the perfect scapegoat. He doesn't have any money, so he can't afford the kind of criminal defense attorney he would need, or team of defense attorneys he would need to defend himself, right? 4 murders, not just one. And this is a high-profile crime and murder, like the O.J. Simpson murder. But he doesn't have O.J. Simpson's money. So he can't afford a decent criminal attorney. So he's going to rely on public defenders, which are often overworked and ill-equipped to handle these things, and or have their own personal political agendas in terms of making a name for themselves and moving up in the legal ranks so they can stop being public defenders, right? So there's that. They had to know that. The FBI knows everything. They had to know that, right? They also know that this kid is considered a weirdo or an outsider because he's a vegan and he's too smart for the environment, and he's not your typical like hunter, fisher, gatherer, whatever. Like he's definitely not one of us, not one of us. And he's not from there, right? So it makes it much easier to make him the scapegoat, right? Because remember, we like to blame people that don't look or remind us of ourselves, that are not like us. We never want to blame people that are like us, because that means we could be guilty too, right? We always want to blame people that are not like ourselves. So he's the perfect scapegoat in this situation. And also the Moscow Police Department has made a mess of this. They've literally, I don't know because I wasn't there, but I'm taking a good solid guess here, that they've Keystone Copped their way through the whole thing and just messed everything up, right? Crime scene, everything else. So there's that. With the extradition chart, I'm going to talk about that 911 call in a minute. The extradition chart shows, I hate to say it, the extradition chart shows that he's not going to go to jail for this. There's a whole lot of missteps and a whole lot of hinky, like not good stuff happening. And he's going to get off, either because of pure luck or divine protection. But he's got protection and blessing around him in this situation. He's not going to hang for this, probably because he didn't do it. And the video for the extradition chart is in the collection. And the last thing is the date for the hearing, right? And I think before the hearing ever gets here, something's going to happen and it's going to end this. So he may not even get to trial. This may be over and done and like swept away before we even get to trial. So there's 2 weeks before the trial date in June that are really, really important to watch. And that chart is still up too. So there's all of that that we've done about Bryan. And I'm putting it here as a copy because I can't find the other videos. I don't know where I'm concerned that my videos are missing. I should keep better track of this stuff. Anyway, the last thing I want to say, right, is about this 911 call. And so now there's this big thing. These same people who are quick to hang Bryan Kohberger up on, like, literally put his head on a pike because, oh, he's clearly guilty, that weirdo. Literally jumping to conclusions, ready to hang a man before they even know he's guilty, are the same people who, in the same breath and the other side of their mouth, are saying that this girl who called 911 7 hours later after seeing a mysterious man in her house, clearly was in shock and we shouldn't judge her. We don't know what she was thinking and blah, blah. Oh, stop. So I said it before and I'm going to say it again. Anybody who gets up first of all, you wait 7 hours to call 911 and you do it after you call your friends and they show up at the house, right? That is because you saw what was going on. Apparently, it's a bloody scene. You can't not know that these people are unresponsive because, hi, they're dead. I think the blood all over the floor is a giveaway. If you're calling your friends first before you call the cops, it's because you and your friends are cleaning up all the freaking contraband in the house. All the MDMA, all the ecstasy, the pills, the pot, the alcohol. That house should have gotten a good housekeeping seal of approval by the time you were done before they called the police. And the reason is you got dead bodies with blood everywhere upstairs. Holy crap, this is bad. When the cops show up, the cops are going to do what they do, which is start looking around the house because a murder just occurred, right? Well, we can't have our pipes and our bongs and our pills, and our acid and our ecstasy and everything else laying around the house. Jesus Christ, we got to get this place cleaned up, which is, I'm sure, exactly why they call their friends first. Then they called the police, and they're all so freaked out, right, that they're like, oh, whatever, like who even knows what they said on the phone, right? And while this is going on, one person would have been put in charge of getting rid of this stuff. So while the group of them were there waiting for the cops to show up, one of the group would have taken all the contraband in whatever bag or box they had it in and driven away, or walked away and taken it far away from the house. Listen, we were all young once. We know how this works. Please spare me. So then, now her story is changing, because at first she saw, I saw nothing, I heard nothing, I know nothing. Like the, was it General Schultz from Hogan's Heroes? I know nothing. But now suddenly she's saying that she saw a man, a bushy eyebrowed man wearing a mask, in the dark at 4 a.m, who looked at her and then walked away. Tall, lean, athletic, wearing dark, bushy eyebrows. And supposedly she heard somebody say, I think there's someone in here. And then there was, she heard crying, blah, blah, blah. So she's all this weird stuff's going on. And just as an aside, unless he was like right here in front of you, how on earth are you telling like he's got bushy eyebrows? Like, really? Really? I'm kind of thinking that big honker he's got in the middle of his face would have been a much bigger, more obvious feature. Because even if you're wearing a mask over your face, he's got a big hawk nose, right? Big hawk nose. That literally would have jumped out at you first, because his eyebrows are not that bushy. Anyway, so suddenly you're changing your story. You're saying that some bushy-eyed man in a mask and dark clothes, tall, lean, athletic, stood there for a moment and looked at you and then walked out. And you were so freaked out, what exactly did you do, sister? Because you just said you heard people bumping around, you heard, somebody crying, saying somebody's here, and then there's this weird thing staring at you, walking out of the house at 4 a.m. And what exactly did you say you did again? Oh, right, you went back to bed, you went radio silent for 7 hours, and then called your friends first, and then called the cops? Okay. Yeah, I'm believing that. So here's the thing, like there's a thing, because they call it fight, flight, and paralysis, or frozen, fight, flight, freeze. So in situations of extreme stress, right, or panic, people do one of three things. They fight, which means they act and do something, right? Or it's flight, which means that they escape. So either they physically remove themselves from the environment as best they can, or they mentally, check out and remove themselves, right? Like the whole disassociation thing. Or they freeze. They become literally physically paralyzed, and they just don't respond. And you'll see a lot of that, those kinds of reports in people who are sexual assault victims, right? They're panicking and they freeze. They don't know what to do. They just can't. And no matter how much you try, nothing's happening. And I know from personal experience, I've had this episode, this moment in my life when I was very young. And I thought I was about to be accosted on the street in front of my house, or like the neighbor's house down. It was at night. And I was standing there trying to scream, and nothing was coming out. I'm literally, and nothing was coming out for like, at least it felt like eternity. Must have been a full minute. Couldn't move, couldn't run, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything, couldn't even scream. And I was trying, mouth was open, nothing was coming out. And it passed. And then of course I made a mad dash for my house because I was panicking, right? But the freeze response is not uncommon, and certainly not uncommon if you're really overwhelmed, because the whole nervous system gets overwhelmed and everything shuts down. Nothing works the way it's supposed to, because these are abnormal situations that you find, circumstances and situations you find yourself in. So it's possible that she froze, right? Stood there like, and did nothing because she died, right? So having the whole brain spasm thing. But here's the thing, like, so what are you telling me, sister? Like, you had a freeze moment, right? Because you were panicking because there's this strange person in your house, shouldn't be there. And you, passed out and then fell asleep and didn't wake up for 7 hours and then call your friends first and then call the cops? There's all kinds of things wrong with this. All kinds of things wrong. Personally, separate from the astrology, I'm not completely convinced that this Dylan person is not lying through her teeth. That she did not hear anybody. She did not see anybody. Like, she literally was stoned off her behind, right? Or drunk as a skunk and slept through all of it, right? Or she got up and was still like stoned and just like, what? Whoa, man, and thought she was dreaming and went back to bed. But she's not going to tell the cops she was stoned, right? Can you imagine? Remember, this is a small town. This is not New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta. This is a small town. Things that it's just a whole different politic out there. So, yeah, this Dylan character, I think she's lying. I think she's lying. You're not going to convince me otherwise. She's lying. She's lying. She's trying to cover her own ass, uh, her own behind. So, upshot, I really don't believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. I mean, he could be. We won't know until trial comes out. We get all the evidence. But sitting from back here in the cheap bleacher seats with the astrology charts and some common sense, I don't think he's guilty. The town of Moscow relies heavily. It's very dependent on college money. Colleges bring in a truck ton of money to the areas they're in. Don't let anybody kid you. So the college town relies heavily on college money. If you've got a serial killer or murderer loose, you can't attract students. Nobody's going back to that campus. Are you crazy? So they need to close this case as quickly as possible. And notably, this case, they found the suspect right about the time the semester ended, and it was just about time to start a new one. So, with all these kids leaving the college after this murder, like it was hemorrhaging money, and they conveniently, after all this bumbling and fumbling and not having anything to go on, suddenly, conveniently, in that week or so that this semester was ending and the new one's getting ready to start, oh, look, we found a suspect. He's the perfect suspect, and we're going to close the case, and he's guilty, definitely, and you can all come back now, bring your money. Just saying. So there's that. And also, too, like there's always egos in these police departments, right, with investigators. So, the FBI got involved, but the FBI, I don't know how this works, but I'm pretty sure there's some limits of what they can do when they're working with local authorities, because you got to work together. It's not you're a guest in someone's house kind of thing. So there may have been some of that with some ego thing going on. And then, of course, everybody in fucking Moscow, including Kaylee's rooster father, using this as an opportunity to be, oh God, sorry, here's my nose. To be like the big puffy chest, like, ooh, look at me, I'm so important in this case, listen to me. Oh my God, right? Have you noticed, just saying, have you noticed you've heard zip zero zilch from the families of the other victims? It's almost as if nobody died except Kaylee. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because her father won't shut up. And he's never, by the way, before you get mad at me, just remember and go back and watch these videos. If you don't believe me, go back and actually listen. He has never once made acknowledgments on behalf of the other families. He's never discussed them. He's never included them. He's never made this about a group, a town loss. It's always about him, his little girl, Kaylee. 4 families lost their children that night, sir, not just you. Okay, so anyway, there's that. So, there's all of that, and the police department looks bad. And also to remember, it's a small town. These cops have to look like they know what they're doing, because even if they decided to retire from this case tomorrow, right, and, that's it, we're done, I'm hanging up my badge and my shirt and my gun, and I'm never doing police work again, right? The fact of the matter is they live there. These people know them by face and name. They know where they live. If they mess this up and they can't suitably close this case to the satisfaction of their neighbors, who will be their neighbors long after this murder is closed or not closed, and certainly long after they retire, where are these police officers going to go to church? Where are they going to go grocery shopping? Where are they going to socialize? Where are they going to go where anybody is going to give them the time of day without really giving them the business, or just, keep your distance. We're done with you now, right? You messed up. You failed us. So the local police department has a huge personal investment in closing this case by any means necessary with anyone they can get that, is a good, easy scapegoat just to make this thing go away, right? Because they cannot afford to not close the case, period. It would be very bad for all of them, because an entire town lost their children. So there's that. And of course, I can't even begin to get into this nonsense with the internet and these idiots. We talked about in another video. So this is my thoughts about what's going on with this case without a lot of the astrology. So we'll see. June seems like it's going to be forever from now. But as more and more stuff comes up, it's looking on more and more like I was right all along, which is good, because that's promising. That means that Bryan won't go to prison for a crime he didn't commit, if he in fact did not commit it. And the rest of these people out here hooping and hollering, literally painting this man as guilty before any of this stuff ever came out, literally need to be ashamed of themselves. There's a reckoning coming, especially these so-called experts and authorities who are throwing this poor boy under the bus with limited information. if it turns out that he is in fact innocent, right? One, you still got a murder on the loose, but chances are, because it's a revenge killing, it won't happen twice, right? But they've also contributed to ruining a person's life. So, and they of all people should know better. So there's going to be some hell to pay, if this ends and he's exonerated, which I think he will be. So I'm putting this video up as a record and testament, so I have it, because I swear to God, I think one or two of my videos are missing. So there you go. I may or may not have horoscopes up. It's the 5th of February. I don't think I'm gonna get the February horoscopes up. I need some time off. So hopefully I'll be back in May, and we'll see how things go. We'll see how things go. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Remember that in the darkest of times, the most important thing you can do, the whole purpose of your journey here, the measure of your success in being on this planet, is not the material things. It's about you keeping your light intact, because the forces of darkness are around us constantly from the beginning of time to the end of time, and they will extinguish your light if you let them. But you have to keep it lit and tend to it and make sure it's okay, that light of goodness inside you that radiates out. And you have to help light other people's candles as well when theirs is starting to flicker. That's the purpose of being here. Don't let anybody kid you. We'll talk to you later.